following the botched presidential debate. After months of planning and correspondence with the candidates, the media was treated to a rude shock the last minute after all but one presidential running mate stand up for the debate. The situation drew acrimony online, with many Kenyans expressing displeasure over the blatant disrespect of media and by extension the public by its candidates. On the Newsroom today interrogates this issue as we seek to understand what really went wrong. Is the media making enemies for asking hard questions? Should we abdicate our roles as fourth estate for the whims of the political class? In studio with me this morning, we have media experts Eric Odur, who is the Secretary General for KUJ, Acting Media Council CEO Victor Bwire, and media consultant and cartoonist Patrick Gadara. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. And of course, this is something that we've read a lot about on social media. We had hyped it up, talking about the presidential debate coming. Let me start with you, Gadara. Where do you think we went wrong? If at all we went wrong.
Well, first, it would be good to know the intricacies of the discussions that happened in the run-up to the debate. I think if I were the media, they're called Debates Kenya Limited, I think they should be publishing all the correspondence that went into this discussion, so that we can actually know whether or not these people were...
So that
exactly, because there's all this talk, people saying they weren't aware, they weren't told it, you see. But if there was correspondence, then put it out there, let us see it, and things. The second thing is, I think for me, for once, I was actually quite happy that the media stuck to its guns. I think this was a real struggle, if you will, between politicians and the media to decide who essentially sets the stage, who decides the agenda. And I think it was good to see the media not really just do the usual thing of rolling over and kowtowing to the politicians. So they stood up to it, they stood their ground, and I hope even next week...
By standing their ground, you mean the fact that
they decide they will have their debate, whether these guys turn up or not. And I think that it's good to see that contention, between the political class and the media, so that they're not always on the same page. I think it's actually a development, although it might be seen in negative light for now. And it's a good development for the future, that if we can actually get our media to be holding its ground, to be deciding that this is the agenda we are setting for the country, as opposed to simply abdicating it to doing what the politicians want, then I think we'll be actually be on the right path.
Okay. Victor, do you think we went wrong as the media at some point? To have a white berth by almost all the presidential candidates, does that say something?
Thank you. One is a big missed opportunity in terms of, because we have been calling for interrogation of some of the policies and manifestos of these parties, so it would have been a perfect opportunity for Kenyans to engage. But largely, looking at what happened, is purely a logistical related issue, that what the people are raising, those who missed to come on, is that they were not involved. The public participation issue, again, how much were people involved, both the organizers and the invitees. So like Gadara says, unless we know at what level, in terms of discussion and engagement, but yes, the media has a responsibility to continue to plan and find ways of engaging and giving the political class a room to explain, because that was going to help Kenyans make a lot of decisions and also understand, like even the one who turned up impressed a lot of people by the way, he raised issues and handled issues, and that also gives room for people who have not been known to be known. So I think we need just to revisit. There is the issue of ego, there is the issue of all that. But to me, media should continue, learn the mistakes that we made, but reach out and see if we can have a presidential debate. Because the last 2013, it helped a lot in terms of just helping people understand, just appreciating some of these people. Because in public rallies, you notice that it's purely sometimes not issues. It's purely the game of strategy, the dancing, and but this provides a room for serious engagement, the substance of the elections. And so to me, it's a missed opportunity. It's regretful that because of largely logistical issues, we missed an opportunity to engage, and I hope the organizers...
How is it logistical? Because, they were advised that the debate is coming. By the way, this was the second one now that was postponed. There was one that was supposed to be there the previous Monday, but was postponed because there was all these accusations and counter-accusations that they were not aware, that the information was not reaching them. Evidently, this time the information reached them.
Mike, the other thing, which we were talking informally, is that are we as media people reading the environment in which we are operating in? Because signs, even look at, for example, the presidency and the deputy, how many interviews, that direct interview, have they done with the other media stations, other than one station that maybe once in a while the DP goes to? How many? I mean, for the last 4 years. So that already is an environment that even the planners ought to have thought through, that what is the general attitude towards the media, with the people we are targeting, so that as we plan, we start understanding the environment in which we are in. Already informally we are talking about how much, you already see in terms of their planning is that they want to run adverts and throw out their things. That's how they are looking at it. So that whoever was planning needs to have also thought about it. It's wrong. It's a wrong thing. I'm not supporting the boycott. But to me, I'm looking at it. That's why I mentioned about logistical issues, understanding the environment. And what is the general attitude towards the media? So that, because I know a lot of money and time and space went into planning those debates. Right. So it's grateful that it didn't. In terms they didn't turn up. But what lessons do we learn as we go forward?
Okay, Eric, your conclusion or your thoughts of them not coming? Are we just dealing with a very arrogant political class that does not want to be questioned?
I think the issue here is that we are trying to develop a new political culture in this country, whereby we are interrogating the policies and the manifestos that have been released by politicians. And one thing I'll tell you for sure is there's nothing that a politician fears like being interrogated. A politician will want a platform where he goes, he makes a lot of rumors and propaganda, then the people clap. But a forum where it has been set aside, where you are now going to interrogate the issues that they tell the public, a politician will try to run away. So that is the kind of the situation we are in. Because we are trying to build a culture whereby in every election year we must interrogate everything that we are being told by the politicians. So that is why the politicians are running away, and they are trying to use excuses, several excuses why they did not turn up for the debate. Because if you look at what the Debate Kenya Limited said, they have been engaging these politicians all the way from when they started the process. And that is why they came up with the format in which they were going to conduct the debate. But as this was going on, the politicians started raising a lot of issues. And if you read, there was an article that was written by Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who is vying for Kisumu to become a Kisumu governor. He raised a number of issues, and for them, I have not seen anything tangible in that article why the politician did not turn up, because they were looking about how this Debate Kenya Limited was formed, how much it was going in, because the media was going to make a lot of money from the forum. But they were not looking at the positive side of it, whereby they are given opportunity, and the public also given the opportunity to ask questions and also get to understand. Even if the debate was not going to translate into vote the way it helps maybe in other jurisdictions, but at least that is opportunity for Kenyans to actually to ask and get to know some of the issues that the politicians have been discussing in their political rallies. Just like Victor has said, in a political rally, you can say anything and get away with it. But in a forum like this, you'll make that statement, the audience will ask, and even the host will ask a lot of questions surrounding that particular subject, so that you'll be able to gauge if you actually understand what you're talking about, and if it actually is something that you can actually deliver. Because politicians will always promise a lot of things, but when it comes to implementation, it becomes a nightmare. They do not. So this is why politicians are running away, and it's a culture that we are trying to believe, like I said before. So we can, as the media, we should not tire. We should continue pushing for this, so that even in future elections, we made this debate part and parcel of a political process.
Yeah, I think, if I may, I think there are 2 points I'd like to make. First is, I think the media itself has to look at its conduct before the debates, not just necessarily related to the debates per se, but in terms of bringing up the issues that then force the politicians to respond. Lots of the reporting that goes on is what is discussed at the rallies. What I'd want is much more digging into the issues, for example, in the manifestos, which you can interrogate without even them in the room, and then raise the issues that they feel that they then need to respond, which is why then they would turn up at these debates, so that they can have a chance to rebut whatever misconceptions, whatever they perceive are there, but make the manifesto and the promises in there part and parcel or a very serious bit of the reporting about the election. I think the second point I'd like to make is about the format. I think while I can understand why they wanted to do the sort of to have two debates, if you will, it seems not to be working. Obviously, when you have the majority of even the lesser candidates not turning up over there's a problem. And perhaps if we had said we've got one debate.
Actually, what happened is that they turned up, but they turned up
for the second one. But I'm sorry, but if as part of the planning process we had said, okay, this doesn't look like it's going to work, let's have one debate, then it's very clear we might have had at least a debate of 6 candidates, even if the big 2 don't turn up. And even that is itself helpful to do. So it's to think about that format, not necessarily to simply roll over because that's what the politicians want. But to think about what is most efficacious, what will actually work, because we don't want a repeat again on next week of the same thing. So perhaps if we really thought that. One last thing is we also have to think about why it is that we don't have these problems at the gubernatorial level. All the debates, the gubernatorial debates, seem to be well attended by the candidates, who are there, and stuff. So why is it that the problem is only this presidential thing? And you see it across the board, whether we're talking about printing ballot papers, whether it's about election results. Our problem seems to be only with the presidential bit, not with everything else. So I think, again, we've got to really ask about why it is that even after we have devolved and everything, the presidency still retains this big attraction where everything, all the stakes seem to be there. And I think when we sit down as media to plan these sorts of events, we've got to take that into consideration and then see that perhaps if we structure it differently, then we might get a much more positive result and a debate that would actually help push the process forward.
All right, Victor, one thing we've had a problem with our politicians is accountability. True. Is this another case of yet politicians trying to be slippery and, go through the fingers of media with accountability? Because really, if we look at the presidential debate, it is about accountability. It is about telling us really, when you say you're going to do A, B, C, D, the how to. Is this yet another indication that possibly we're dealing with a very unaccountable political class?
Largely true, because are our politicians, do they ever think they're accountable to Kenyans, that they're doing this job on behalf of Kenyans? That's the bigger challenge we have.
Even with the debate, do they consider what Kenyans would want, whether the debate to take place or not to take place?
I mean, to them, that's not a priority. To them, that's not part of what they think. A part of what they think is tell Kenyans this, dish out this, buy a few voters here and there, they vote you in, then you wait for 4 years. So I think to a large extent, Kenyans were also contributed to the way politicians are treating voters. Because at what level? In fact, you ask yourself, even some of the gubernatorial you mentioned, the Machakos one of the candidates didn't turn up. So the feeling of I'll get it for whether I go for it or so there's also some level of disrespect that we are seeing politicians treating Kenyans with a lot of contempt sometimes, many times, and this is something that we need to address. I think largely, while most of our electoral related things have been put in law, but I think also there's a bigger role for media now to start looking at that the environment we are working in. It needs us to develop a bigger thick skin, because if we are going to remain the watchdog that we ought to be, then we need to do more. Because at some stage we look like we had become lapdogs or guard dogs, and for that people are also treating us with the contempt. And sometimes you will call somebody for an interview, they will think they are doing you a favor. Yet you have a bigger responsibility to hold them accountable. They don't hold those positions or offices on their own behalf. And they must be continuously be answerable to some people. You know, I remember in some jurisdiction where the presidency or big offices have even monthly or weekly press briefings to tell people what is happening. Has this a culture?
You remember we started off with having those weekly briefings.
Yes,
So same thing with Kibaki, by the way.
We need to, remember the former government spokesperson every Thursday briefing where people feel we hold these offices on behalf of other people. So I think we need to push. We need to push even outside the presidential debates. We need to push even with after elections, government and other public institutions to be continuously providing and engaging people. In fact, if you look at the County Government Act 2012, it's very clear. It sets out how county governments and the government should be dealing with the citizens through the media. And it lists even the type of media. So it's already even anchored in law. But how many of our, for example, governors give those weekly briefings to tell anybody anything? Nothing.
All right. And as you answer that, it may not necessarily be a bad thing as much as in the public scope, depending on how we pick it up from here as media, it may look like it's disrespect, it may look like the politicians have an upper hand, but at the end of the day, it could also be an opportunity for us as media to let the electorate know these are the people that you are going to vote for, and this is how they view you as people.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said before, that the process of making politicians to account for their actions and their promises must now start now. And I think as the media, we need to pick up some few lessons from the debate and what happened and what is likely to happen next week when we are having presidential candidates. Because accountability must now be made part and parcel of our political process. We should no longer allow politicians to always set the agenda. Then even if they don't deliver, nobody questions them and nobody asks them that, why did you tell us you are going to do ABCD and you did not do, or why did you tell us that you are going to do this and you know very well that that is not possible. So as the media, we need now to push to ensure that we are part and the parcel of the political process, because we have allowed politicians to use as conveyor belt. Like Victor said, that there are maybe specific radio or television stations where these politicians go to when they want or when they wish that this is the time I'm ready to go and propagate this idea or this political process and engage the public. We must now start start closing those gates so that we come up with a proper way how we are also going to engage the politicians. So the politicians cannot engage the citizens. If we allow them now to set the agenda and tell us when they are going to talk to us and when they are going to talk to the citizens, then I think we'll be missing out on our responsibility to the media, so that we provide that platform, set the agenda, and also interrogate these politicians. So that is where the problem is, and to me, I think this is a blessing in disguise, because it has now allowed ourselves as journalists of the media to review ourselves how we are going to engage politicians from now and in future, so that we do not lose our role as a watchdog in the society, so that we can hold these politicians to account to everything that they are saying and what they are doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the media has a chance to sort of stake its ground now. You know, I wasn't very encouraged by what happened after the debate when you went back to running the illegal presidential delivery unit ads, which actually even now the Ombudsman has said that people should actually be investigated and prosecuted over them. But we are still running them, you know, and we know they are illegal. You know, you did the Election Offences Act, you know. So in that sense, it's almost like we take one step forward, standing up to these guys, and then we very quickly take two steps back. You know. So the media has to be consistent. On debates, I really think that also we need to have, if we want to develop this as a culture, we need to also build it from the ground up. I think we really need to be thinking about doing debates as well during primaries, you know, where there is actually, and you force the people who are running, who want to stand during primaries for whatever offices, to actually sit down and talk about the issues and the policies that they have. So it's not just a matter of saying I'm so popular because of 1, 2, 3, but to actually articulate what issues and what promises they're going to do. I think if this becomes a culture across all the races, you know, then we can actually build it up. So the presidential debates is at the pinnacle of a big sort of debate culture, not just sort of the only ones that happens. So right now we just have gubernatorial ones and the presidential ones, and a smattering here and there of perhaps some of the senatorial races. But I think if we really start building it up from the primaries, so there's an expectation built up that there will be a debate. I think the politicians are going to find it rather hard to run away. Finally, I think on the issue of accountability, the accountability again has to be systemic. And I think we've got to build it into how we report. And that starts from day one, from when they're in office, and insisting on discussing not just the politics of issues, but the issues themselves. The policies that are being put forward, etc. Because then that forces the politician to want to come in to defend himself, So when you give him the platform on a debate, he'll be sort of jumping at it, as opposed to right now where we almost seem like we're begging him, just come. Because as the president was saying, I've got other ways.
Right. And you see, there are two forces here that are actually trying to push each other. There's a force that actually is trying to push for transparency here and accountability. Then there is a force here that is trying to resist. It's telling these people that, you see, we are not going to be held accountable by the media. We are going to deal directly with the public. But when they are dealing with the public, even if you follow up what is happening at political rallies, there's nothing tangible here that the public. They are making some promises that even them, they know very well that they cannot keep and they cannot deliver, because they are telling the public what they believe the public will want to hear. So that is that's where we are, because you have two forces. The force actually who is resisting this accountability and transparency, and I think the media must continue pushing to ensure that this is part of a political process whereby politicians are held to account for everything they do.
In Uganda, actually, Museveni missed the first debate,
right,
and his chair was presented empty, and the other guys continued the debate, and the following debate he came. So just allow. I mean, because the process, like you said, is media planned, media setting the agenda, and setting the agenda might mean losses and costs involved. So proceed.
Right.
If they want to come, let them come. If they don't want to come,
but I think really think about that format, because I think if you have those 6 guys who choose to turn up and leave the other podiums for the other 2, that is fine. At least we will still have a debate and discussion. It will be prominent. It will be seen that these 2 are actually the ones who are running away. I'm encouraged a little bit by the NASA stand, who say that all they want is a discussion with Jubilee. But I think, well, first, they shouldn't really be conditioning their participation on what Jubilee does. I think they should turn up on their own steam. But at least they seem much more amenable to turning up, rather than Jubilee, who seem to have sort of put up a wall.
Could the fact that we still have the 2 principles, although the other presidential candidates would like to make, especially media, feel like they're all equal. But could we be having the 2 presidential, the 2, I don't know what to call them, but have Raila and
the 2 front runners,
the 2 front runners, basically setting the pace such that they're already dictating. If they say they would come, then definitely the rest would be more than happy to.
Well, that's the thing is even if they say they will come, if they were having a debate, the 2 of them, and the rest of being sectioned off somewhere else, there's no guarantee that they will turn up for that. My point is, if you had a format where all of them were there, then really the onus would be on them, because they would be seen as the ones ducking the debate. Everybody else is there. And the second thing is, having all of them on the same stage, I think, has its benefits, because as we saw the last time, there are issues that the lesser candidates, who, to be honest, won't be winners. They're not going to win the election, but they can influence the discussions that go on. They can bring their issues to bear, and have the front runners address whatever their concerns are about policies, and stuff, and whatever they want to push, and have those guys force them to address. That's one of the functions of a debate. So I think if the media and debates limited considered the format, then for next week, then at least we would have a debate whether or not the 2 turn up.
Okay, but me, I'm looking at it differently, because it doesn't make any difference whether we maintain the current format where we have got 2-tier system, whereby we have the first 6, then we have the last 2. It doesn't make any difference. And I think even the ones who are supposed to turn up for the earlier debate, I think they can solve the situation. Why can they take up that time that have been given? it doesn't matter, because whether you give them right now, if these guys are not going to turn up, whether you give them the time that has been allocated to them or to give them time that has been allocated for the two principles, it doesn't make
the point is a bigger picture, and the bigger picture here being the fact that they do not want to be viewed as second runners. They're as equal as everybody else.
Which is okay, but if you look, we are setting a precedent, and you look at some of the reasons that have been given by the politicians who are participating in this process. They have said that if you look at the last time, if there are eight of them there, they would not have sufficient time to explain and articulate some of the issues that actually could arise. And I'll agree with them, because if you have 8 of them, by the time you start from number 1, let me just finish. By the time you start from number 1, by the time you are going to number 8, I think maybe the point would have been lost in between. So I agree, if you still have the 2 tier, and if these guys actually are real and they want to participate in the process, I don't see any difference for them to appear earlier. If it's supposed from 5, they do their part from 5 to 6 to 8. Tell Kenyans what you think you want to do for them. Then let them interrogate you. So let the 2 don't turn up. But so it's very clear that the format was there. These 6 guys turned up. They are able to engage the public, and they've done their bit. And I think that's how we're supposed to be, so that we do not see on the media that we are now being pushed and we're now working under the pressure. We are being bullied. That if you're not going to do this, we are
what has been the practice elsewhere? Because presidential debates are not unique.
Right.
What has been the practice elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, for example, the U.S. one, which I think is what most guys would be familiar with, throughout the primaries, you had up to 12 guys sharing a stage. If you looked at the Republican side. So it's not really about the numbers, here. And I think last time we had 9 people on stage. I think we had quite a profitable debate. This time we were having less. If we were to put them all on stage, it would be 8. And to his point, I think if you were to say that time is a problem, then I don't see how having 6 or 8 makes that much of a difference.
Well, it makes a difference, because I think that the tabulation and calculations that had been done, each would talk a total of 10 minutes.
Yeah,
which they would say they would rather engage with the electorate elsewhere for a longer time than 10 minutes on this particular
but if you had 6, it would be what, 15 minutes? So it wouldn't be that big. My point is this, again, the way debates are structured, you're not going to have a debate where everybody gets an hour to talk. That's not going to happen. It's not how they're structured. And again, it's really it's about how debates are moderated more than really whether everybody gets 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
I think what you're talking about here is that give everybody the chance and the opportunity that person deserves. Right. That's why you should talk about equitable distribution of resources, not equal distribution of resources. If these candidates have been unable to score more than 5%, then I think there is nothing wrong, because what you're talking about
again, we're not saying there's anything wrong, by the way.
So what we're talking about here is providing the platform. Has the media provided the platform for these politicians to go there and articulate their issues?
Which they have.
The media has already provided. That is our work as the media. As the media just provide the platform, then interrogate them. We already provided the platform and the time. So whether they want to turn up or not, that's now their choice. But at least the media has done it bit, provided the time, provided the platform, and politician to come there and now to be interrogated on.
All right. Moving this conversation forward, Victor, I know there's something you want to say, but as you put that together, we have the 24th for the presidential candidates coming up. What is it that we should learn from what we have had so far? 2 of them that have not taken off successfully as expected. And should we just sit there and hope that they're going to come, cross our fingers, and hope that they'll come? Yet there's so much money that has been pumped into this particular exercise.
I think the law, the electoral law and both the IBC law provides that media should give equal time to participants, so that the issue of one being given more time and less, because the law is very clear in terms of equitable time. If you look at the electoral law. But again, also we should push. To me, the 24th must happen. And happening is not sitting and waiting and hoping that they will come. The various platforms, the various pressure, the various senior editors using their own time and work, and using these forums like what you are talking about. You are giving people platform to raise some of the issues, the displeasure by the act. should go. I mean, a multifaceted approach to having these people attend the 24th is not a favor. The thing will be there, and we need just to show how much this level of impunity should not be allowed to continue, that this is an accountability forum where we are interrogating what people are promising to do, and they will be asked questions. I've seen very many times on Sunday, the KTN on Sunday, the Shundu, the check, the African check, where, I mean, and these are the kind of things, this forum will provide such a forum where somebody makes a claim and through research and it can be checked. And because sometimes I've attended rallies because as an observer, and you hear senator candidates promising to bring water, to bring roads. Sometimes you wonder, is this even under their mandate? So we need to, I mean, to me, we should push, we should use all means possible, reach out so that this 24th happens.
Okay, Eric, maybe should we approach it differently in the sense that maybe use soft diplomacy? Because we've tried the, let me not call it combative approach, where you literally just put it out in the papers, you've sent a letter. Maybe we need to sit down with some of them and find out what is it that would make them accept to come. Is that a way to...
Yeah, I think between now and 24th, we should continue with consultations, because they are calling them consultations with the political parties, their presidential candidates, their handlers, their strategists, so that we can make 24th happen. But in the event that they are adamant they are not going to attend, and we're going to have that debate with them, then again, as the media, we must be innovative enough and provide that platform for something else that is beneficial to the public. Because again, this platform that is being provided and the debate, actually, the people who are supposed to benefit most from it as opposed to the citizens and the Kenyans. So if we cannot make it beneficial to Kenyans with the presidential candidates present, then we must look for other ways how we can still continue to use that platform and make it beneficial to the public. Have a public debate with them. What do they want from the politician? And see how we can push for this to become part and parcel of a political process, whether the candidates stand up or not, even in future elections.
Right. Actually, I have to say I like that idea of having almost a standby brigade. Yeah, plan B. So that if they don't turn up, then you can still have a debate, because don't forget, you can interrogate these issues even without the politicians in the room. So that is fine. You know, I think it would be great to have that going. The second thing I would say is, I think we need to learn from what has just happened, you know, and from the week before, you know, and not to be afraid to address some of the concerns that are raised, especially by the lesser candidates. By lesser, I mean the ones who are not for I
think we'll also need to look for a new term.
But I think the media really needs to take on board what they are saying, you know, and to listen to them and to be willing to change its format. Now, that said, by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the media does not have a right to decide what its format. It's the media's event, and I don't think in any way, shape or form they should be dictated to. But that said, you can listen to what the concerns are and see which ones you can accommodate. Because at the end, it's in everybody's interest. If we've got a debate on the presidential election, you know, on the 24th, you know, if it does happen, where issues are articulated. Now, for me, if the big two refuse to turn up, you know, that's their loss. That should be seen as their loss.
Absolutely.
You know, but that shouldn't stop us actually taking the platform that's there that the media offers to actually articulate and have a real good discussion about what the issues the election should be run on.
All right, I'll just take a short break. I'll pause you a little bit there as we release KTN Home for Life and Style to begin, as we come back to have our closing comments on KTN News and more updates. But those of us on KTN Home, we say goodbye for Life and Style to begin. All right, and maybe as we close this particular segment, the newsroom, maybe let me start with you, Victor, and this is in regards to the IEBC. Very briefly, what your thoughts are. They've had a very difficult time, or rather it has been a very tough time for them with court cases left, right and center. We have the presidential ballot paper printing tender row hopefully being sorted out tomorrow. Your thoughts on maybe what we need to be looking at right now as a media in regards to IEBC?
IBC has challenges, but they are struggling. They are doing the best within the circumstances. I think the problems the IBC started 2-3 years ago. They just that they are now climaxing towards an election, and which I think people have tried to do their best, because they are a great case and the rest are not the first time. I mean, the first judgment was given quite some time. What you are raising is that, I mean, having interacted yesterday, I was in an IBC function, and where I listened to the CEO Chilomba, and you see the difficult environment our colleagues are working in. And to us, while we demand accountability, but we need to give them support. Because they are now the institution that is holding this country. Whether you arm the police, whether you arm what, whether you work with peace messages all over this country, IBC, the institution that is holding this country to, if they can do a fair, credible election, then these other things we shouldn't worry about. We have already engaged as interested parties, because elections is not just about IBC. We have engaged them, and I think they are listening. They have now Plan B in terms of depending on whichever way the case tomorrow goes. But from what we are looking at the perception issues, it will be best, even if the court were to make otherwise judgment, to look just for an independent, neutral printer for that thing. Because even if what happens, there is already a perception issue that has been formed, and the trust and credibility becomes an issue. And this is something we have shared with them, so that they start thinking about Plan B and C. Quite a number of things. Again, we allowed a lot of things to be put in law that were purely procedural matters, like rules and regulations of how to run a polling center, but which are in law. So again, IBC is struggling. Almost everything is in the law, and so we don't need to pity them. We give them prayers, but we need to give them also support that they require.
To me, I think looking at what is happening is like we are set to have elections, and I think IBC should continue consulting other stakeholders. And again, even for us as the media, I think we must also start looking at what other stakeholders are doing, because again, we focus so much on IBC, forgetting that there are other stakeholders that also have a role to play in the electoral process. So again, we also need to look at what are these other stakeholders doing, because if you look at the IBC timelines, somehow they are affected because the other stakeholders, the political parties, were not able to do their part right in time. And then we lumped everything together and pushed them towards the end of the process. So that's why you can see now we are having the issues of about voter register, we are having issues about ballot printing, although ballot printing issues started a long time ago, like Victor said. So what we need to do is we need now to look at every stakeholder. What are you doing? Even for us, the media, what are we doing also to help the process? What are the political parties doing to help the process? What is the civil society doing also to help the process? Then we now focus on IBC to make sure that they deliver free, fair, and credible elections, because that's what the Kenyans are talking about.
All right.
Well, I think first we have to keep in mind that IBC has had 4 years to organize this election. So I wouldn't give them that much slack. You know, it's been, I think, 4 years of inaction, and then everything being pushed in the last year. You know, and I think they need to learn from that, and we need to sort of punish them for how they have handled themselves over the last 4 years. Yes, no, I think as Kenyans, we really need to say that this is not on. We cannot have that over the last 4 years.
Elaborate what you mean by punishment.
If you look by punishment, I mean we insist on accountability for this, because if you look at all the recommendations that the Kriegler report made, you know, most of them are yet to be implemented. This is 10 years later. You know, so we really have to ask, what have we been doing in the meantime? If you look at all the problems we had in the 2013 election that are now propping up again, whether it's issues to do with the register, etc., why is it that it's being cleaned up at the last minute? You know, why wasn't it cleaned up? Why wasn't the election properly audited a few years ago and now being fixed? Now, that said, we are where we are. And I think there are certain things that we as Kenyans looking forward need to insist on. The first is the IBC has to deliver a free and fair election. You know, I think we've got to all agree on, at the basic minimum, we're going to be guided by the rule of law. You know, it really hurts, for me, concerns me when the president stands up and says, it doesn't matter what the courts say, we will not accept. You know, that is not on. You know, the rule of law has to be a guiding principle. I think also, given that we are likely to have a disputed election, you know, we've got to say that the people anybody who has an issue with the election has to take that up using the constitutionally acceptable means. You know, that doesn't mean necessarily only going to court. You know, we know street protests, etc., are allowed under our constitution. And then we've got to insist that the government commits right now that it will safeguard, it will protect, it will respect people's rights to go out and complain and petition peacefully about the election if they have a problem with it. That has to be safeguarded. So all this talk we are seeing now and all this tear gas vehicles, water cannons, guns, bullets, all this stuff we have been told about, which is really about intimidating people, has to stop. Government has to, at the very minimum, say that it will respect people's rights. And one final thing that I would say is, going past, we've got to look past the election and to say that we're not going to forget the circumstances that bring us here. So whether it's about dealing with historical issues that are the fodder for the chaos that we get, and also insisting that electoral processes are audited and the electoral system actually reformed and fixed so it's fit for purpose. That's one thing we shouldn't forget after the election.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll have to wind up the newsroom right there. Patrick Gadara, Communications Consultant. We also have Eric Odur, who is the Secretary General for Kenya Union of Journalists. And last but not least, we have Victor Bwire, who is the Deputy CEO for Media Council of Kenya. That is the newsroom. Thank you for your participation. We'll be reading your comments as we continue with this particular show. For now, we'll take a short break. Then we'll be right back with some news updates right here on Morning Express. Do stay with us.